This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, I hereby announce that adequate notice of this meeting as required by said act has been provided by adopting a schedule of regular meetings for the year 2020, which schedule was posted on the Borough Hall Bulletin Board as well as the Borough website and forwarded to both the South Jersey Times and the Sentinel of Gloucester County and filed with the Borough Clerk on January 4th, 2020.
Please rise to salute the flag. I
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America,
to the republic,
which stands
one
one
nation,
under
God,
God, indivisible,
Nation.
liberty and justice for all.
roll call, Karen, please.
Mayor Wallace,
Here.
Mr. Casabone,
present.
Mr. D'Alessandro,
Here.
Mr. Fiola,
Here.
Mr. Halter, Ms. Miller, Ms. Miller,
I see her.
Ms.
see
Miller
her.
is on. Mrs. Spence,
Here.
Mr. Melandro,
Here.
Mr. Scafidi.
Present.
And let the record reflect that Mr. Halter is excused for this evening.
Okay. Karen, it's all yours. Go ahead.
Okay, so I need to make an announcement first that there will be a presentation which you can find on our website, www.glassboro.org/virtual-council-meetings. Once on that page, you want to click on the red rectangle, which reads Download Penn Praxis Growth Management Plan Presentation for June 4th, 2020. Mr. Melandro, we need approval for the minutes.
Have approval for minutes of the March 5th work
I
session.
apologize, the work session meeting of March 5th, 2020, as well as the closed executive session of March 5th, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Casabone, second by Mr. D'Alessandro. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. New business, Karen?
I have no new business, sir.
Anyone, any new business? I'm not going to ask everyone individually.
No.
Communications, Karen?
I have no communications.
Anyone else? Any communications?
No.
Perfect. Okay, we could get into our discussion items. I see Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay. Lindsay's going to give us an update on the Glassboro mural project. All yours, Lindsay.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's really nice to see other humans other than my family. I hope you're all healthy and staying as sane as you possibly can. I wanted an opportunity to talk to you because, as we know, in these unprecedented times, we're all trying to figure out how to navigate our way forward on all of the work that we're doing. And while I know you guys have larger fires to put out, we are hoping to work on this mural project in some capacity. So my hope is to just take a few minutes just to tell you what the committee, the design committee, and the artists have come up with. The update on the project so far is that Eric and John are both on contract, and thank you very much for all of you who helped to make that happen. We have had a conversation with the design group, the Glassboro Design Committee, or is that what it's called officially? I'm not sure the official title, I apologize. To figure out if we can proceed forward virtually, and what the suggestion was. For example, Eric and John have worked around the world many times and have not been in the communities before they are working on a design. So they rely on connections with community members virtually, as well as Skype and research. Thankfully, a lot of things are online. So what we had come up with was a plan that we put together a list of people and organizations that were important for John and Eric to work with. And the hope is that we could have the blessing from the committee to proceed forward, having virtual meetings with different groups as well as phone calls over the next few months so that the artists can do interviews and start collecting information so that we don't get stuck not being able to move forward with the project. One of the most important parts of this project that I think we all agree on, that we would like to make sure that there is a point where we all get to have some touchstone to the actual mural, being a paint day of some kind, depending on how situations change over the next year. The thought is that we could do anything from spaced out time where people can paint, mural pieces that could be painted at different homes, spread out in a large park area. So we're coming up with lots of different ways that we could adapt the mural project so that we can continue to keep moving on it. Because I think this is an important time where even though we're in isolation, there's still things like murals that could bring people together through conversation. So that's kind of the big download. I think that what we were hoping for is if we had the blessing from the council to proceed forward in a virtual way of doing research, that we put out some kind of press when it feels appropriate so that the community knows that we are officially rolling this out and that there will be things like an Instagram and an email account that would be set up so that there's ways that people can connect with the project throughout this research phase. And the group that we have put together a pretty exhaustive list so far of a lot of people that could be contact points for John and Eric. Anybody have any questions or thoughts that they want to add to that?
Lindsay, just if I may, Lindsay and I have had some discussion. I'm all for this. I think it's a great way to keep the project moving. We will still see progress. We will still see it all the way. And again, things are moving fairly quickly about reopening. I mean, we're looking to reopen the borough in 2 weeks. This gives us the ability possibly maybe to do something in the summer. I don't know, but I think it's the right thing to do. That's just my 2 cents, guys.
I honestly think we'll be able to do something as a paint day. By the time we get to that point, we'll be able to do something within any type of guidelines if they still exist at that point. So I think it's a great idea to move forward virtually. We can get a lot done this way regardless. So I'm all for it.
Also,
Well, is
given
there any
that
reason not to do this? It seems like it's an easy one, or am I wrong?
An easy one.
we wanted your blessing, and we also wanted to know with all the things that you have going on, how do you feel about some official statement being put out from the town to say that the project is beginning? We could do it where we're just starting to contact people, but is there a desire to make it more formalized that we are launching this project? And I really defer to you because I don't know half of what you all are dealing with as a borough.
You know, Lindsay, if you would have asked that question 2 weeks ago, I probably would have said no way. But I'd be, I think it's something we should do. We should start changing the tone of the borough as we come out of this virus. So I'm all for it. If it's something we want to work on jointly, get Levon involved and definitely do something. I think the more positive stuff we could put out there now, the better.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'd like to say too is that I'm managing 6 different projects at the moment, and all of them are kind of like where the water takes us is where we keep turning. And so we're very flexible, and if things shift again, then they continue to shift. But I will keep in direct communication with Ed, and obviously we have some people on this committee that are also on the council who are also on the committee where we can have some back and forth if things need to be changed at any point. You can certainly let me know.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Lindsay. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Nope.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay.
Wonderful.
Thanks for joining.
I'll follow up with you, Ed, at a later time. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Be
Thank
safe.
you.
You
Be
too.
safe.
Please, everybody stay safe and healthy. Take care.
Next on the agenda, and I'm not sure if Julie, are you on? I suggested to Julie to join around 6:40, and I don't see her yet. This is in regards to, this is going to be the meat of the discussion. This is where practice is.
It still has the line.
Excuse me, the link that Karen announced at the beginning, Karen, the clerk, is that something we're supposed to be on right now or find ourselves?
Hopefully when Julie comes on, she'll be able to project so that we will be able to see it here.
Okay,
Hopefully.
there she is.
Julie. Right on cue, Julie.
He's still muted.
There you go.
Say right on cue.
There you
Right
go.
on cue, Julie. Perfect timing.
Okay, because we're a little bit early, but I can. It might take me 5 minutes to share my screen here. So
Take your time.
all right. How's everyone doing?
Good. How are you?
Well, nice to see you.
Nice to see you all too. Fortunately, everyone is on the screen, but I think we've all gotten used to this.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I need to be given permission to share my screen.
Julie, I'm about to grant you the right to be the presenter. You just 1 second.
Okay.
You should get a message that you're becoming the presenter, and then you should be able to hit the share screen. Try it now. There it is.
There we go. Great.
Oh, awesome.
Great.
Okay. Luckily, I have 2 screens here, so if I'm looking off to the side, it means that I am looking at the other screen.
Julie, if I could just say something before you jump into this, can you just reference for any person who may be following the presentations, can you just reference what page you're on as you go through this?
Yes,
Great.
I will. Or I
Thank
will say, like, we're looking at the X map, and so that will be another way. So hopefully I can get that. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust my screen here so I can see everybody. Okay. That's fine for now. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. There we go. Okay. So I think it makes the most sense because I understand we should be pretty efficient with time. I will just go through the whole presentation and we can have a discussion or questions at the end. Does that sound okay, Ed?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. So thank you all so much for having us come and present today. I understand that there's a lot happening in the borough as in many parts of the world. So thank you for being able to dedicate part of your evening to helping us with this plan. So we have it's been a while since we've updated you, so there's quite a bit to share. And so I'll just go ahead and get started. So just as an introduction, I'm Julie D'Onofrio. I'm the Managing Director of Penn Praxis, and we have been working on the this plan for about a year now. And I'm joined on this call by Katie Levesque and Carrie Hohenstein and Kwang Yi Su. Carrie and Kwang Yi actually just started this week working for us this summer, so they got a quick crash course in Glassboro and helped prepare for today. So if they're on the call, they can say hello or and will help me with questions afterwards. So this is the agenda for today. We'll just go quickly through the objectives, where we are now with the community vision statement that we developed, some of the draft strategies that we're in the process of developing and would love your feedback on, And then some of the areas that we're looking at to create some visualizations and land use changes, and then discuss what remains for the project. So just as a reminder, the growth management plan, the purpose behind it is to bring together stakeholders to determine what the future of Glassboro should be and help chart a course to get there together. And our goal is to create a set of mutually beneficial strategies that will allow for focused growth, economic development, and an enviable quality of life for residents. This is where we are in the timeline. So when we first scoped this project, the first phase was going to be data collection, doing stakeholder or intelligence meetings, doing a community visioning session, our community survey, and then developing guiding teams. So that has all been completed, and it took place during the summer and fall of last year into January and February of this year. And then really where we are today is in phase 2, where we have been working on the land use scenario analysis and the draft strategies. And we actually already started moving into the visualizations, which is technically in phase 3, just because we had to delay some of the stakeholder info sessions because of reasons that we're all familiar with. So we're actually kind of shifting things around today, but we are on schedule to, we're presenting to you today, and then hopefully we can get enough feedback that we can move forward with finalizing the plan. So the one thing that we did complete is the community vision statement, and this was taken from all of the feedback that we got through the community surveys, which we collected in person at the Borough and Lights. We did an online survey using Qualtrics that we asked people to fill out a postcard and log in and do online. We also did paper surveys, and then we also issued this to the Rowan community so that students, faculty, and staff from Rowan were prompted to fill out the survey as well. And essentially all of this is written online, but people really love the historic character, the civic spaces. But things that they wished for were things like strength in residential neighborhoods, public school investments, the diversification of entertainment, and of course had a lot to say about traffic congestion. So a lot of these things were not terribly surprising, but it was really good to see how robust the positive feedback was. And so in creating the vision statement, we put forward a series of themes that will actually say what Glassboro wants to be in the future, not what it is, some of which it is already now, but the vision statement is what helps create the strategies on which the plan is framed. So the first piece of that is that residents and stakeholders are proud of Glassboro's small town, family-friendly feel, its history, diversity, and its wealth of community activities. I apologize, Ed, I was going so quickly, I forgot to call out the slide number as you had recommended. So this is, sorry, slide 8. Maybe I'll just keep it on this view so that I can keep track of that. Secondly, Rowan University, this is slide 9, is a point of pride. It distinguishes the borough from its neighbors and brings promise of long-term prosperity. One thing everybody agreed upon was, regardless of some of the issues that may result from Rowan, everybody's really happy that Rowan is here and the possibilities for growth together. Slide 10, a future Glassboro welcomes and supports Rowan faculty, staff, and students while ensuring its neighborhoods are comfortable and a desirable place to live for families and long-term residents. The community is safe for pedestrians and cyclists with strengthened connections to other regional hubs through public transportation. The historic character of the downtown is retained, complemented by new mixed-use development, showcasing the unique talents and culture of Glassboro. So with those statements, we looked at them side by side and said, okay, well, now our next task is to develop strategies that helps Glassboro achieve all of these things that are laid out in the vision statement. So how do we create historic character or retain historic character? And then how do we create new mixed-use development so that there's places and spaces for people to express these talents and culture? And so the next series of slides that you'll see is the beginnings of our recommendations that we're drafting to get some feedback and to show you some of the things that we're going to begin to recommend. Now, I will say these are just short statements. This is meant to be a short presentation, and they will lead into the creation of a plan that has each of these strategies explained with a lot more text, a lot more implementation recommendations, and really a set of tools that you can use to make sure that these things happen over time. Goals and strategies. So these are framed under 4 themes, the first being coordinated development. And what we mean by that is new development in Glassboro, this is slide 15, either by Rowan, private developers, or the borough, is thoughtful, coordinated, and informed by community input. New development is coordinated with infrastructure upgrades such that it prioritizes alternative approaches to mobility and enhances rather than impedes circulation. Quality residential neighborhoods. So we heard this loud and clear throughout. How do we maintain existing residential neighborhoods but also create new ones that support the tax base? So slide 17, Glassboro is home to a diversity of high quality housing options, including both single family homes suitable for families of various types and sizes, and multifamily options for smaller households, professionals, and students looking to build a home in Glassboro. So ideally, we're creating a lot of housing options that aren't just families versus students, but building a multi-generational community through housing. Economic opportunity, slide 19. Glassboro is a friendly place to do business, open small businesses, find living wage employment, and have access to quality entertainment and shopping options throughout the year and across seasons. With this, we'll create incentives to support home ownership and economic development, which aid in retaining residents and enable businesses to cater to a variety of tastes. So we heard through some of our stakeholder interviews that, there's a perception that, some businesses are for the borough, some businesses are for students. So, economic development is a combination of, supporting different types of housing typologies as well as a business support. Community identity, slide 21. Glassboro is distinguished from its neighbors and peer communities as a community of choice within the region where people can live, work, attend school, shop, and recreate in Glassboro's wealth of community assets and welcoming downtown. So this is really getting at, those community features that are meant to be retained and making sure that the diversity and unique character of the people who are coming here for school or have lived here for generations really has an opportunity to shine through. So under those 4 overarching categories, the next bit of our presentation here is to show you some of the strategies that we've developed so far. Slide 23. First strategy is to work with Rowan University to establish an office of, can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just got a pop up from the GoToMeeting that I was having network instability, so just let me know. Okay, so work with Rowan to establish an office of off-campus housing and neighborhood relations and or community partnerships, staffed by representatives of both the university and the borough. So this is a strategy that exists in a lot of university towns where big universities exist and smaller towns. This is something that Penn has, that we work with them regularly, and this is really important just to state how important community relations is by establishing this office.
Julie, I know you said you wanted questions at the end, but just a very general question. After we go through this presentation, should next steps be sitting down with Rowan and other partners, maybe inviting them and going through this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you will see on our last slide that we actually need to do more research and more coordination with stakeholders to really, vet the viability of some of these things and put some text into, who's working with what department and such, so that it really is all laid out there for you. So yes, we definitely want to do that. Okay, I'll keep going. Next up, my computer's freezing. Reduce traffic congestion. This is slide 24. through Borough University Coordination of Land Use Planning and Parking Management. So, you know, as planners, one of the tenets that we subscribe to is how essential land use planning and transportation is, because, you know, we all know if you create new mixed use development that gives you 40 new housing units and you're using the same streets and sidewalks and bike lanes, that is just going to put more tension on that infrastructure. So, you know, ideally land use planning is done in coordination with the borough, with the university, so that these sorts of things can be planned for and they can be abated even if it is over the long term, so that some of those complaints about traffic, which we've heard through this, can be ameliorated. Thirdly, we will preserve and stabilize areas of single-family homeownership with tax exemptions and subsidies. This is slide 25. So this is also part of the research that we're doing, which we have a lot more to say on this particular subject, that what's available in terms of precedents that other universities have done, but also what's available in New Jersey. So this is an area we'll be talking with our tax expert friends, but in general, we've heard that it's very important to have financial incentives available for those who want to stay in town, and then think carefully about which neighborhoods are serving which community members, so that everyone feels really comfortable where they live. 4, we would like to adjust some of the zoning to promote mixed-use development, concentrate student housing, and provide more opportunities for high-quality residential options. So this is also, you know, kind of going with a fine-tooth comb through the existing zoning code in Glassboro to see very specifically, this is kind of what I was saying about coordinated land use and transportation planning, that, you know, rather than large areas of land being zoned all the same thing, you know, how can we be very specific about where high density, you know, 4 to 6 story buildings might go versus, you know, moderate density. So we'd like to talk a little bit more about how perhaps new zoning categories are created, or the zoning code is made a little bit more specific in certain places to really achieve the type of nodes and density that you seek, and the preservation of neighborhoods that maybe we don't want more density. So another thing, going back to the traffic piece, is, you know, I already spoke about coordinating land use and infrastructure, but also it's really essential to link with what, you know, Rowan's growth plans are, and then other kind of job center growth plans are, to make sure that, you know, camp shuttles are actually coordinated with class schedules, and, you know, parking lots are meant to be shared between daytime use and evening use and weekend use, so that, you know, we know that people are not going to stop driving. We know that rail may be coming, but it's still many years off. So there needs to be some really concentrated transportation planning that, again, links to what Rowan has planned and what the borough has planned. So that also is something that would happen through the first strategy I mentioned, the university borough collaboration, but this one's very specific to commuting and how people are coming in and out of the borough during those crunch times. So commercial corridors are things that we looked at specifically. We also wanted to talk about POD, going back to the light rail that's expected, really looking at the areas, you know, even if it's 10 years from now, might see that opportunity for increased density, and then how do we you know, take advantage of tools such as business improvements district, also opportunity zones, which were recently extended, to try to really coordinate where incentives exist, to leverage how we do that future land use planning for the borough. And then finally, introducing design guidelines is a good strategy to layer on top of those business and economic incentives, because, you know, really the critical piece of creating successful commercial districts is the economic incentives layered over with the design elements that really, you know, create that Collingswood feel, that, you know, maybe neighborhoods in Philadelphia feel, where you kind of have all of the mix of stores and the pleasant walking environment with residential above. You know, all of those things are really essential to think about the both the aesthetics, but also the economics that went into that. I'm sorry, I failed to mention this is slide 29. I keep on. Hopefully, those on the phone are able to follow along when I change subjects. And then, so we wanted to finalize, this is slide 30, with kind of showing how these various strategies achieve those 4 themes that we laid out at the beginning. And so you can see here that working with Rowan on this coordinated community partnership piece would help us achieve the goals of coordinated development, quality residential neighborhoods, and community identity. Reducing traffic congestion will help us with coordinated development in residential neighborhoods. I won't go through all of these on slide 30 here, but you can see that we're really thinking about, we're going back and we're checking to see that the strategies that we're creating here are really, you know, they're not arbitrary. They're completely tied to the, flipping slides here, to the themes, and the themes flowed directly from the vision statement, which again flowed from the community input that we got. And so these are all layers that are part of this puzzle of figuring out, you know, what are the issues that we have, how do we solve them through smart land use and transportation decisions. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next section here, and then I'll go through this pretty quickly, and then we can have questions at the end. So in order to test out what some of these strategies might look like, in particular with the zoning changes, we looked at 4 areas in the borough that we had previously discussed with staff and or found through our own land use analysis that might be kind of test cases for where new land use might be applied, or where ideal places for creating this kind of walkable mixed use look and feel would be. Or, you know, how could we create get more single family houses on the market, because we know that there's a lot of competition with surrounding communities and such. And so how can we kind of leverage all of the available land in Glassboro to achieve together what we're trying to do with the strategies? So as a reminder, here is your existing zoning. Okay, I just heard a beep. That wasn't an alert or something, hopefully. All right, so this is slide 33. We visualized using land use colors all of the types of different residential areas and office and industrial and everything that's already in the code. And then we looked at these 4 areas, which, as I said, we either discussed with borough staff or we thought were ripe for some suggestion of what could be there in the future. So the first site is on DELSEA Drive and Bristol Drive. So this is where the McDonald's is. The site is 12 acres. And what our thinking here was, it's a fairly underutilized site, and that there's a lot of surface parking, and the commercial area itself has a little bit of an older feel to it. So we asked, what would it look like if we switch this from C5 to a high density residential category? And I'll float my hand cursor to say that we would go from 522 square foot of commercial and surface parking to being able to fit 313,000 square feet and an additional 960 housing units. So the type of housing unit imagined here would be those kind of garden apartments, maybe students and or young professionals, but it would be from a urban design standpoint, it would feel, it would hug DELSEA Drive a little bit more, so it could create that more like of a pedestrian walkable feel, which most of DELSEA Drive is not right now. And it would start to extend some of the look and feel of the downtown into that older commercial quarter. And it could accommodate some higher quality retail that people will, and entertainment options perhaps, so that people will want to stay in Glassboro to spend their dollars. Again, just as a precursor, all of these calculations were done based on the existing zoning and the allowable lot coverage and range. So these are estimates, but they're a really good indication of the type of development that you could fit on these sites based on what you already your current regulations.
So Julie, this site, that was where the McDonald's is right now, correct?
Yep, correct, yeah.
Okay.
And I believe there's a B&T in the closer to DELSEA, and then in the back, there's a big box store. So imagining that the high density residential would sit on the back portion of the site, which actually backs up to a preserved green space.
Okay.
And I believe it's city owned, it's public. The second site is High Street, but we looked at the site between Academy and DELSEA, kind of around that key intersection where the Glass Museum is. And we're looking at if you applied a very specific type of new mixed-use zoning category to the site, with added some incentives that you could, right now it's zoned C2, and it is in a redevelopment area, which I know allows some flexibility. But again, we feel like it's very helpful to be very specific about your zoning, especially in these areas that you're trying to create these really, specific look and feel and connectivity. So this is a 9.2 acre site currently zoned C2, and we're proposing that this site could be changed to a higher density mixed use with retail on the ground floor, which would yield 240,000 square feet and 736 housing units, as opposed to the 400,000 square feet that it would yield now. This would need to be accompanied by structured parking. Again, these are just vignettes to start a conversation. So this would all need to be worked out with a developer, et cetera. But just trying to look at some of these key areas. Site 3 would be on ELLIS Street as you approach 55. And I think I had this location right, but this is the site we talked about that you can see it over here in the existing land use map, that it's currently zoned for an office park. And in our discussions with staff, we determined that these undeveloped areas of the borough that could accommodate single family housing is kind of few and far between. So perhaps it would be beneficial for tax revenue, schools, et cetera, to convert things that are currently planned for office park to single family residential. So if this particular site, if that was applied to this site, it would yield 850 new single family housing units of that size. This is slide 37. And then really right across the street from there is a site that's currently zoned I2 industrial, which is light industrial. And if we're proposing changing it to office park, which has a higher lot coverage and allows for a higher density, and it would be able to, you can really fit a lot more jobs in an office park than you can in light industrial. How many full-time equivalents can fit in an office park versus light industrial. So it would also really help with tax revenue in terms of, how the borough was able to compete with other communities. This example is from King of Prussia. So not sure that, something of this density is appropriate, but it's worthwhile to start the conversation around, how could some of these key areas be potentially rethought to get at what people in the community are really hoping for. So those are the 4 sites, and we'd love to discuss these with you. I will just go quickly into next steps, which is we'll be finalizing the strategies and sharing those with staff for review. We will need to pursue additional research and stakeholder input. As I already said, some of these strategies are still in development, and we wanted to hear your feedback before going any further. And then we will finalize the plan and we will present to the community when able. So of course that caveat exists because going back to the original plan or the original scope, we would go to the community pretty much where we are now with the vision plan and with those themes. But because of COVID and not being able to do things in public, we kind of had to fast track the development of the strategies and looking at those visualization areas, and then we'll go back to the community at the point that makes sense. But we didn't want to lose time, and we're really, as I said, really grateful for you putting us on your agenda for tonight with all of the important things going on. So with that, I will conclude and open it up for questions. And please let me know if you wish for me to go back to any slides. I'm a firm believer that going back, leaving a presentation on the last slide that says thank you is not a very productive way to have a conversation. So do let me know if we can go back to a strategy that you had a question about, or a map, or the redevelopment sites.
Yeah, Julie, I'm sorry. At what point would we, I know Ed asked earlier, where will you revisit meeting with all of the stakeholders? At what point is that? It's in stage 2 or when you go into stage 3?
It was originally supposed to be in, I think I'm going to define stakeholders in 2 different ways. So let me go back to that. So we did a lot of stakeholder interviews. So, met with a lot of people who are doing work in the borough to see, how did you create that development, or talk to people in neighboring municipalities. I don't know if we would necessarily go back to all of them unless we had questions, but we will want to go back to stakeholders, meaning the community. And I look to y'all's direction to help us determine that. I've been in regular communication with Ed and also Levon, and we discussed, doing a kind of a graphic presentation of all of this in August during those evening events that last time we talked were still on the schedule. Ideally, we would have had a big community meeting again to, put a bunch of presentation boards together and talk about, those 4 themes and how we got there, and then what some of the strategies would be. So we're still totally willing to do that if an online format is possible. But I think we want to discuss that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Julie, I was just going to say I'm at a little bit of an advantage because you and I have been talking this through. I think it's wonderful. You go back to that McDonald's, and one of the reasons why I was a fan of bringing you guys in is I would never have thought of putting housing back there, residential housing. And I think it's the options that you presented is a total different look for Glassboro. And I think personally, I think that's how we need to think about this. This town is evolving. We don't know what it's going to be, and that's why we needed a professional. So I think we're on the right track. I think it's presenting new ideas. These folks did not get to see all the information, all the results of all the surveys, which, as you know, when you presented that to us, I found it out. It was incredible. Like I actually had this opinion of Glassboro from a resident perspective, that there were so many complaints that they didn't like stuff. And it really wasn't the case. It was almost just the opposite. No matter what you looked at, even schools, everything, people like Glassboro. And I think what happens to us sometimes is, as council, we only get the negatives. But when you looked at the actual presentation, the numbers, everything that's been gathered, people pretty much like what's going on. And I think what the work that you've done here is only going to make it a better town. So that was my comments, Julie.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I'm totally enamored of the idea of DELSEA Drive becoming a more walkable and pedestrian-friendly corridor, because it really has that potential. And tonight I really didn't see it till I saw this, and I was like, wow, that is just spot on. And it wouldn't detract from all the development we're doing downtown, because it would actually just add to it and make everything more connected. So I really like that.
Yeah, it's actually kind of, you need to really look at a map to see how close really this site on DELSEA is to all of that, all of the great development that you've done in downtown. It's really just, a block away. So if all of these, new transportation infrastructure and people start biking and walking a little bit more, they would be just as happy to live there than, right on Main Street. So I think as the borough grows, and kind of rethink some of these areas as just larger than what we think of as the current downtown, that's really what we need to be doing in terms of thinking, what's happening over the next 10, 15 years.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I have myself a lot of questions about some of the sites, the 4 sites, especially the 2 involving Ellis Street. In terms of finalizing strategies, where are we with that? Ed has just said that you've done a lot of work that we haven't had the opportunity to see. What's next for those sites and developing strategies and putting them into use? Because I think, from my own personal point of view, there are some questions that have to be asked and answered for at least some of those sites that would be too lengthy to do right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ed, I can give my perspective and then you can jump in. Ideally, this is the first time, we've had these conversations with staff just in general, but this is the first time that staff has seen these very specific counts. And so this absolutely needs more discussion before anything is finalized. So I would look to Ed and Clark and others to say, like, we can't necessarily get all around a table and roll up our sleeves with a map, but I would like to emulate that somehow so that we can really, say, okay, who owns this site? What's the desired use? And really know how specific to be before it gets anywhere close to final.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
and to Julie's point, Tony, we just wanted to get this in front of you. With COVID-19, we have not had the ability to get it in front of you. It is a little bit different thinking. So, and Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, it's more conceptual. What do you guys think? I mean, this is totally different. This is totally different, I think, than anybody would have thought of. And that's why we just wanted to get in front of you. The numbers that I was talking about, Tony, is really the information that was gathered, the surveys and everything that was done. And that's what
I'm sorry, I have to find, I'll try to get that muted.
Don't curse, Tony, don't curse.
I muted him.
So again, Tony, this was more like, what do you think of the concept? It's different thinking. It's totally different for Glassboro. And then if you guys were all in agreement, then we would pursue next steps. To Julie's point, let's find out who owns the properties, what is the feasibility of doing it. Some of the questions that I've been asking Julie all along is, you really think we can do it? Do you really think we can do it? And she's like, yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Julie, but you have been, yeah, I do, or I really wouldn't be recommending it. Yeah. So I found it very refreshing.
And I got one question so I understand. Julie, George Costabone speaking. The DELSEA Drive project that you were talking about with the multifamily homes, I like that idea, but so I understand, are we talking about the businesses that are there? Are they going to have to go?
Well, this is the tricky part. This is kind of what we were talking about with Ed and I just a moment ago about the other site. I actually don't know how long the lease is on McDonald's or the Big Lots. And so those are types of things that can be aspirational. And then as the site may change hands, that, you know, a part of it could be redeveloped. But you really need to know, you know, who owns the site and what their lease agreements are. You need to adopt potentially new zoning, and all that stuff takes a long time. And it's also coordinated with these things like incentives that I alluded to earlier. So there's a lot of kind of nuts and bolts that needs to take place. But yes, I mean, what happens, you know, in some communities is that, like, let's say the BB&T is there. They would be welcomed to be the first tenant in the ground floor of a new mixed use building, you know? So it's like, it's not trying to kick anybody out, but it's like saying, you know, as a business owner in Glassboro, would you, you know, take an extremely reduced rent rate to be a tenant in this new building, you know? So it does kind of have to be a gradual thing that happens over time.
So you can make incentives for them, like the gym and all that, to move into the ground floor. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
And you know, George, when you think of that particular site, you have McDonald's there, but then you have the gym, you have Big Lots, which is moving, and then you really have nothing. There's nothing there. So when you think about this and you go, wow, this could be some heavy lifting with the McDonald's, other than the McDonald's and the gym, you have a lot of land with nothing really on it.
Oh, I agree with you. I just wanted to make sure that I understood about the businesses. Either try to relocate them or all, but like Julie said, they could be in the offices on the first floor. So that's all I was concerned about.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a great idea.
So is there anyone who conceptually don't agree that, you know, hey, put the brakes on it, let's go a different direction at this point? Is there anyone in that camp?
No, I'm not in that camp. It takes some getting used to, certainly. I'm generally favorable. As I said, I have some questions, especially about Ellis Street, and especially in terms of the history of the development there, that maybe some people are not aware of. So I think it warrants more discussion. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
I would also, you know, add to Ed's question, is there any other site that you think we should be looking at? Now that you know what we're going to think about and do with this information, is there a site that's, you know, of a significant enough acreage that it warrants a land use analysis that could, you know, have a higher or, you know, more intensive use than it currently does?
So Julie, I think I may have shared this on the surface with you, but Academy Street, there is, I don't want to call it significant space, but there's definitely space. We're actually looking at some things there, and I have to bring you into the loop with that as well.
So,
Academy
yeah,
off of
I think we,
is where we are looking for this this second site, but I would love to have more specifics on this because, you know, right now, as I mentioned, the calculations are pretty raw. They're, you know, just kind of yields based off of, you know, what the zoning currently allows for. But if you had anything specific about, you know, this site is not going to change, this site is, you know, this is not a, you know, this land, this owner's never going to sell. Like, that's the kind of information that we would need to know to be able to really make it specific.
And obviously, we didn't want to get into that in an open forum. That would probably have to be enclosed. I see Timmy's on mute, but I'm surprised he hasn't weighed in yet in regards to that. Tim, you agree that should definitely be happening in a closed session?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. This was just more conceptual. Here's some things we could look at. So if there's
one more spot that I just wanted to point out was that the place up on DELSEA past Doubletree, past Friendly's, that abandoned large area up there that used to be a used car lot, and you know what I'm talking about? Across from Canal.
Yeah, it used to be a dealership.
That area there, it just has always been empty and non-productive. So just take a look at that, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a caller that's on, I think is muted, that I believe has a question. Are we able to get callers in to ask questions of the
Mayor,
PennPAC?
can we go into open session at this point? Do you think
we-
that?
Well, are
Can
we in closed?
I'm sorry, not enclosed. I apologize. Can we do a public portion at this point where the public can ask questions? And that would cover our public portion of the meeting, or you just want them to be able to ask?
I have no problem with that.
I would say, Mayor, open it to the public just on this report, so we limit it to the report only at this point. We have a subsequent public portion we could ask anyone for any other questions.
Okay,
okay.
do we need a motion for that, or?
Yes.
That's correct. Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, state aye.
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 Against? Ayes have it.
All
Okay.
right, thank you. So I guess people can unmute. Okay, thank you.
Can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I have one question. My name is Scott Brody. I'm a former Rowan student. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I actually more comments than questions. I really liked your presentation. I did engineering and going into planning. I would suggest one site to consider is the junkyard at Grove Street and DELSEA Drive. I would just measure it. It's about 1,400 by 500 feet. And that's also right along that trail is the Monroe Township Bike Path is being extended into Rowan University. So it could almost be like the students could live there and bike to class pretty easily. And then my only other comment, and this is actually the main reason I decided to join this meeting, was I unfortunately.
Trish, I'll see you, sometime next week.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was in the Rowan area in January, and just over the border in Harrison Township, I witnessed the immediate aftermath of a fatal accident. This is something I've always noticed, is that there's big gaps in the sidewalk along US 322. And I was hoping that the borough would consider doing something so that the neighborhood, especially between Hampton Court, can be connected with the sidewalk in the rest of Glassboro. I know that some of the owners have already put in sidewalk, and the borough has an ordinance 415-7, which should allow you guys to order the property owners to put in a sidewalk there. And then even if you really weren't comfortable, you thought that for economic reasons you didn't want to order them, there's also things like safe routes to school, which it seems like based on the distances, you should be eligible for maybe some funding under that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mayor, do you see any other questions or comments, Mayor?
Yeah, and just to be clear, and I appreciate the comments from the gentleman, but my understanding of the motion was that the comments are to be directed specifically to this presentation.
Correct.
Okay.
That being said, sir, your comments have been noted and will be addressed.
Okay.
And I can just chime in that we can talk about things like sidewalk connectivity as part of the plan in general.
This is Joe Brigandy. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Hi, Joe.
Joe Brigandy, 311 Sturgis Court, Glassboro, enjoying retirement. Miss you guys. Just a couple questions. First, I had a comment. First of all, Julie, I love the number one strategy for basically working with Rowan and having them create the off-campus housing thing. I think that's been long overdue. I knew that it had been done in other states at some colleges, and I think I even remember there was a person assigned that would go knock on the doors periodically, and especially to like the frat and sorority houses, and be proactive in trying to prevent crazy parties or out of control things. So I think that's an excellent recommendation. I had a question on item number, I think it was 6, where you referred to non-traditional lease agreements. I was just curious what you meant by that.
Non-traditional lease agreements.
Yeah, it says under strategy point number 6, redevelop commercial corridors by leveraging opportunity zones, prioritizing TOD, establishing a bid, and pursuing non-traditional lease agreements. So I just wasn't sure what you meant by that. That's all.
Sure, and I mean, this is there's still research and a whole lot more to back up what we're showing here. But example of this is kind of what I was just saying about the BB&T in relation to the other site, where there might be a right of first refusal to be a new tenant, and maybe there's a reduced cost for leasing a site where you're really trying to incite redevelopment. I know that Nexus already does things like reduced tenant improvements for some of their sites. So that would be a non-traditional lease agreement example. And we will be looking at additional case studies as to how other communities have done this successfully, to provide a little bit more meat as it relates to that particular category as we go forward.
Okay. The next question was to do with the High Street site changing from C2 to R3 high density. And I guess one of the things we had always kind of planned was arts and entertainment for that area. And I guess my question is, does switching of that to that zoning designation, would we still be able to pursue the arts and entertainment type places we think we need?
Absolutely. Okay. And I think that is an example of this kind of, what I was just saying to Ed earlier about needing to just really look at this parcel by parcel to make sure that if we were to create a new zoning category or rewrite the zoning, that it actually makes sense to an arts and culture organization that would want to come in. So, as I'm sure sometimes when mixed use development is created, some really awkward and small or overly large ground floor commercial results, and sometimes they are hard to lease out. And so, we would really want to make sure that the specifications in the zoning were tailored towards the uses that you actually need and want in that area. We are aware of the arts and culture plan and of the MPP and all these, overlapping policies that already exist here, and would definitely want to retain any of the good work that's already been done and not replace it, to make it a little bit more specific.
Okay. And site number 1, DELSEA Drive. I know you mentioned it was around McDonald's, but can you tell us roughly what the boundaries are? Is it Green Tree Road to a certain location, or where?
Yeah, we don't have an area on this slide, but essentially it is if you're looking on a map, it is the area that includes this large parking lot and basically goes from McDonald's to that street, which is Bristol Drive, and then backs up to the protected open space that is behind it. So it is a 12-acre site.
Okay. And then the only other thing I wanted to say that was appreciate everybody taking my questions and comments. If you guys decide to do any kind of key stakeholders committee that would work on this, if you're going to pick stakeholders from Rowan and from the borough and businesses and stuff, I'd be interested in volunteer to sit on any kind of committee like that if you decide to go that route. Ultimately, the decisions are the governing bodies, but if you are going to set up any kind of committees, I'm willing to volunteer, and that's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Julie, I think you got some good feedback. I appreciate the presentation. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so no more questions?
Thank you.
I think we're good.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay.
Good for now, yeah.
Thanks for letting me
And
know what Bristol Drive was.
what's that?
I never knew Bristol Drive was a name, like the real name of a street. Don't never. Thank you.
We spend a lot of time looking at street names over here. I also just want to thank Katie, Carrie, and Quanti, who were on the call from my team that helped pull this together. They did a great job. So thank you, and we will see you next time.
Very nice. Great job, Julie.
Stay safe.
Very nice.
Bye.
You know, the street naming is a good segue because that's number 3 on the discussion item. So whoever brought that up, I appreciate that. Penrose street naming. There's some street names, and Anna and George, there's been a few other things on our plates the last couple of days. So Anna, I know there was one name that we agreed upon. Can you bring everybody up to speed just to give them a heads up on the one street name and a little bit of background on the person?
Timmy, do we have to close the
Yes, sure, that would be
public
amazing.
comment, please?
Yes. Good
Motion
catch,
to-
Karen. Please, John.
Motion to close the public portion?
I'll make that.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
ayes have it. Okay. You're on now, Anna.
Okay, with the new housing over in Ellesmere, they wanted to maybe name it after someone that was familiar with that area or from that area. And I know we always name our new streets after veterans. Well, there's a gentleman, Mr. Al, I always call him Al Farron, but I think Al might be his middle name. He was a Montfort Point Marine. He served in World War II, and he has a few other accommodations. I don't have the information totally in front of me, but I thought that he would be a good name to submit for one of the streets over there in the new senior housing that we're going to put up. Actually, he lived right across the street from where Ellesmere Housing was at.
He's deceased now, Anna, did you say?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So George and I have
Anna,
reviewed this as well.
I'm sorry, I got you. You said his name was Al? You don't have his full name in front of you?
His name is James Albert Farron, Ferren, Senior Patrol Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps, World War II.
Okay. Very nice.
Good.
To me, it's just, that's an absolute no-brainer. I don't know how everyone else feels.
As long as you can get Mazio in there somehow.
Well, so we're okay with that one, right? Timmy, do we need all I got to do is get back to the housing authority, right? Do we need a motion or anything for that or no?
I would, just so it's been formalized on the record, so if anyone questioned it, we have it documented.
So what would the motion be to name the street after Mr. Farron?
I don't know how many streets they're proposing out there, but certainly that. Yep.
Where's this at, Timmy? Where I got lost on where we're at.
This was the Lincoln Boulevard project, the former Ellis projects, the Penrose project, Housing Authority.
I think there may be only one street because I think
There's two.
No, it's going to be two.
Okay.
Two.
All right. Made a mistake.
So Tim, I need a motion for the first one, or I don't think we have a recommend. And I don't want to speak for you. I don't think we have a viable recommendation for the second one. We've been trying to name streets after veterans. I know Anna had a second one, but the person wasn't a veteran. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So George, I don't know if you have anything else in mind for the second name.
Let me interrupt you guys, please. I'm sorry. I got cut off for about 30 seconds.
So did I.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I got cut off for about 30 seconds. I don't know if anybody else did.
I did.
So Tony, we said we think the first recommendation, Mr. Farron, is a no-brainer. Everyone is in agreement. And there's a second street name that we're looking for. And I reached out to Councilman Cosbone to see if he had anyone in mind for that second street name at this time or not. The housing, I believe it's the Housing Authority, they've been after me for these names for about a month now.
Can we check with the VFW or their records or I've got a guy working on a book right now, and he's very deeply involved in the research for all the Glassboro fallen heroes, which aren't necessarily, they're people that actually died in battle, but, and they probably already have streets named after them because a lot of them are already on our monument. But I could ask him if he's come across any other veterans in his research that lived in the Ellesmere area before we decide, and I can do that pretty quick.
Well, I know Joe, I'm talking about Joe D'Alessandro, and I've been talking, and Joe brought it to council about Mazzio. There's Mazzio out there who's a veteran. Am I speaking out of turn, Joe? Am I correct?
No, you're absolutely right. Because we've been waiting for some road names, roads to be opened up, and he was the next on the list. And if there's two roads that we can kill two birds with one stone, that's fine.
That's
because
right.
Leo McCabe's is in the Ellesmere area too, which was Acorn. So it doesn't really, just because you're from that area doesn't mean you can't name somebody else for there.
If I
can jump in, I was talking to Sean Kelly this week, passing emails back and forth with George and the same information that Anna had. Sean Kelly is the 911 coordinator. He does have a list of veterans from the VFW.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Mark, because I was going to bring it up. And also, Mark had texted me because years ago I was involved in this thing, and I guess Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. Sean is under the impression that he names the streets, and without approval or not, he doesn't have to have approval for council. And he said he was going to look up into borough ordinance to see if that's correct. Am I speaking right, Mark?
That's correct. Yeah, he wasn't aware. He back when this was first kicked off, it was Ken Wogelmuth, I think.
Yes.
Wogelmuth. He was coordinating this, and George, as you mentioned, you were a part of that. So that it developed. There is an ordinance on the books that created several steps for utilizing veterans as a preference for street names within the municipality. So I don't know if there's something there, but I was of the understanding, based on past jobs that we did down at Beezer's and everything else, that there would be a recommendation go through him. He would check with the county to make sure there's no conflicts with any surrounding communities or within a community, and then make recommendations to council for formal adoption, because you need to create an ordinance for these streets to be created for that. He wasn't aware of that part. Here again, he hasn't been in the loop. He's been there numerous years now. But yeah, he'd be more than welcome to talk to whoever, just so he knows the process, because the names came up with the project out in 322 for the townhouses. They also have two street names there for that. So that's two more streets there. I believe they did submit a request into him for that parcel also. So that's a separate matter. I don't want to confuse it tonight, but I wholeheartily agree with what Anna brought up about Mr. Farron. I did read his the information that was sent by his relatives, and
so did I.
He was a trendsetter way back in World War II. So he was one of the first in their crew to get into the military and in battle for several years. So I agree wholeheartedly for that. And then what you and Joe and George mentioned would be great, but there is a list. So for future streets, just coordinate with Sean and everybody to get that process cleaned up. And I'll stop.
Yeah, how it used to be when I was involved years ago. Ken was involved in. He was an EMS guy. I forget his last name. I think he moved from Glassboro. We would come up with the names and then submit it to the 911 coordinator to make sure that it wasn't duplicated, and then it got approved. That was before Sean became the 911 coordinator.
That's correct. Yep.
But I don't know how council feels, but I think we should be involved in somewhat with the approval of these names. That's just my opinion.
I think you have the absolute right, and you should be the ones, and that Sean has no right unless you approve it, period.
Okay. Yeah, I think all Timmy and you know me, I sometimes I speak a lot out of turn. I think if it goes to him, he should only see that if the street's not duplicated, and if it isn't, then it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
That would be my opinion as well, George. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Just to let you guys know, can you
Just
hear me?
remember,
I'm back
guys.
on.
Just remember, when GCOS passes away, I'm a veteran.
You got 20 years, George. You got a while to get on the list. You're
I
right.
hope I do, brother. I hope I do.
You'll be on there for the new development.
I'll be around to be bugging all your sides.
So Timmy, what?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Tom.
Okay,
So what-
I have no video. I have audio. Just letting you know I'm back on.
Okay. So what do I need to do, Jim? Can I move the recommendation forward for Mr. Farren?
Yeah, absolutely. Council makes a motion to recommend the street naming of his name, and then you'll forward it to Sean, and this is the recommendation. Ask you for approval, clearance, and if so, that's the name. Yep.
And is our other name, I got a question to Joey D. Is our other name Mazzio? And Joe, did he specify anything to you about a certain street or a certain area that he wanted this to be named?
No, he really didn't care where it was, but if there's other ones opening up in 322 or something, yeah, I guess he don't care as long as he knows something's going to happen there.
Okay.
So I don't have to get the calls from him.
Yeah, I used to get them and I passed it on to you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Anytime.
Yeah, I just comment, as Anna noted, I mean, to the extent that maybe that list that Sean has, certainly the Ellesmere is a historical neighborhood in our community. And we all know it was a predominantly African-American. It was a Black community for all the years, still continues to be. To the extent that there is another Black resident, veteran or something, probably would make sense if we looked at that for naming sake and maintaining the history of that area. But that's just a comment. And as Mark noted, we have 2 more streets on the new townhouses.
I kind of agree with you on that one, Timmy. And like Joe and I just discussed it, we got 2 streets out there at 322. So we can name that one of them Mazzios. And I agree with you to keep the names out there in that area. Yeah, I have no problem. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yep, sounds good to me.
How do I go about getting a second name?
Anna, that's Anna's job.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, I passed that off, brother.
So do I have a motion for Mr. Farren?
I'll make that. Oh, Anna, you want to make the motion?
I'll make, yes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Guys, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, because I had to call in and I lost my internet. Aye.
Excuse me, guys. I think Gary Brackett's father was a veteran. But I'll find out. I'll do my homework and I'll let you know.
Yeah, that'd be nice with Gary Brackett. Yeah, I knew the family very well. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Granville was a veteran, Dan.
Yeah.
That makes
yes,
correct.
There you go. Good job, Anna.
Okay.
I think he talks about his dad in his book, right? I believe he talks about him. Yes. Yeah.
Ed, would you like me to see about getting that list from Sean Kelly?
That would be great. And I hope you know what I got to do to get this over to Sean Kelly, because I'll be asking you.
Yeah, we've been through this, right, Timmy?
Okay.
That we have, yes.
Okay, we'll take that offline. All right, the next 2 I have here should be really quick, and then we can get wrapped up for the night. The first is Borough Bucks. I think everyone is familiar with this program. It's really our business stimulus program. We've taken $30,000, Levon's idea of NPP money. NPP has been very good to work with this. And basically, starting June 15th, for whatever small businesses have signed up, someone can come in. You have to be a Glassboro resident. You can come across the street to Town Hall, to Town Square on June 15th that whole week and buy a $50 gift card, and we will match you up to $50. So you buy 50, you get 50 free.
Hey, Ed, I had a couple questions of some residents out in Camelot. Can they buy more than one?
We're trying to cap it at 50 right now. So, and we are taking everybody's name and address if there's more than one person in the household. I guess they could, but we want to try to make this available to as many citizens as possible.
Okay, because they had asked me if they could buy like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We've already got some positive press around this, real good positive press. You know, Glassboro really doing something.
Well,
So,
it's good. It's good out in Camelot. A lot of people are really interested in it.
yeah, and the businesses really appreciate it. So, and we've had some partners like ERA and Young who had donated money for some, you know, affairs that we may have in the town square, who said, take my money and apply it to this. Nexus has put some money in as well.
Good. Good.
Okay.
All right.
Lastly, any other questions on that? Lastly, reopening of Borough Hall. So Monday, we're going to reopen Borough Hall. The plan is really to take 2 weeks with half days. We're alternating times. Monday to Wednesday will be 12 to 4:30, and then Thursday and Friday will be 8 to 12. We picked June 8th because we wanted to give it some time after Memorial Day to see if numbers spiked. Numbers really didn't spike with the virus. So we're continuing with this. If you walk in Borough Hall, it is a much different place than when you left it pre-COVID. John could attest to that. Sharon's desk looks like a bird cage. There's plexiglass all around it. She looks like a bird. She looks like a bird in there. But Mark, Clark, Zach, they just did a hell of a job. When you look at our offices, I know Karen's office, we've gone, I believe, above and beyond to try to protect our employees. So I'm thinking everything will be fine. And then what I'd like to do is take 2 weeks, and I've already sent out an email this morning starting to notify our employees that if all goes well, no spikes internally, no spikes externally, we will open back to normal hours, which I can't wait on June 22nd. Okay. So that's that. Karen, what do we got in regards to resolutions?
Okay. So we only have a handful of them. We have, sorry, I lost my place here. That Mark Brunemer sent me some kind of email.
I'm sorry, I'm working. I'm sorry.
Just kidding. Resolution 13920, resolution authorizing the release of a maintenance bond. This one I actually had to, let's see here. Maintenance bond for American Asphalt Company in the Borough of Glassboro reconstruction of College Ave upon the recommendation of the borough engineer. Resolution 14020, resolution authorizing the release of maintenance bond for Daniel Gregory in the Borough of Glassboro, Daniel Gregory Incorporated, actually, East Boulevard, on the recommendation of the borough engineer. Resolution 14120, resolution amending resolutions R 7620, granting approval for Form B1 and C. I believe that what happened with that was it was only B1 that we approved. Is that correct? What, Mark?
No, what you granted Form B1 and C, which is preliminary and final approval for the College Town Shopping Center for the water and sewer facilities. They came back and revised the layout. They ended up keeping the building for the salad works and reconfigured everything. So they had to come back in and get a revised approval from the zoning board and also water and sewer. Very minor items pertaining to valves and a couple of locations. We worked that out with the water and sewer department staff. Got the comments back then. They updated the plans, and that's what's before you this evening.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 14220, resolution authorizing agreement for professional services. This is for our Sickles and Associates. It is for the 2021 NJDOT Municipal Roadway Street Aid application. Charles III Drive is the one that we're going to do this year. Resolution 14320, resolution authorizing refund of street opening. This is for Ray and Mary Kennedy in the amount of $750 Resolution 14420, resolution authorizing refund of street opening guarantee, Rosemont Farms LLC, in the amount of $750. And I do believe we have one add-on resolution. Timmy, did you want to hit me with that title?
Sure, it's a rather large one, but Resolution 14620 is a resolution temporarily relaxing existing ordinances and procedures associated with review and approval for existing restaurants and food establishments and retail business, providing for outdoor dining and outdoor displays, to provide assistance to local retail businesses under the current social distancing restrictions enacted in connection with the ongoing coronavirus public health emergency, and subject to the rescission and relaxation of the current stay-at-home executive order. In short, this will provide an opportunity for our construction zoning officials to summarily approve outdoor dining, seating arrangements, and appropriate spaces that are found suitable and that can be used by our local establishments that would be managed within Glassboro without having to go to planning board, zoning board temporarily while we deal with this issue. That would be the purpose.
And we're looking or you need a motion. Let me make a comment on that first. We're looking to start this June 15th, which is in conjunction with the executive order. We've actually been asked if we could extend it, but we want to take a 2-week period, see how it goes, and then possibly 4th of July weekend, possibly look at shutting down Rowan Boulevard to vehicle traffic and extending the restaurants into the streets. We've already formulated a plan about that. I think it could be very good, but we really want to take this in little steps first. Let's take the 2 weeks. We got this in place, and if it's going bigger, we'll just expand on it. The businesses have been very happy with this. All I had for it.
Okay, just so all of you know, just to add on to that, I've already received some questions regarding the liquor licensed establishments in Glassboro. One specifically is Joe Solano from over at Italian Affair, because they're only going to be able to serve outdoors. So just so you're aware, I received that call while we were on this meeting, actually. So they're going to, the ABC is going to allow them to extend their premises, and they're actually very loose. The guidelines are very loose. I will send that out to all of you so you can review them. So we need a motion to approve those resolutions.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have first and second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Roll
Against?
call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call. Oh, boy.
Mr. Cassabone,
Yeah, I take care of everybody. Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro,
4.
Mr. Viola,
4.
Ms. Miller,
4.
Mrs. Spence.
4.
Thank you. And we have one ordinance for introduction this evening. It's ordinance 2016, ordinance repealing chapter 143, air pollution, section 4, open burning prohibited, non-applicability of the code of the Borough of Glassboro. So from what I can gather, and Timmy can correct me if I'm wrong, we don't really need this in the code because it is covered in the state law.
That's correct.
Okay. So any questions on that? I need a motion and then a roll call vote, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cassabone,
Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro,
4.
Mr. Fiola,
4.
Ms. Miller,
4.
Mrs. Spence.
4.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to open the meeting to the public?
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone in the public wish to address mayor and council at this time? JD, are you still on?
JD is, I had Carrie Ann waiting in the wings to.
Okay.
Hi, it's Carrie Ann Kennedy. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Thank
can
you.
hear you clearly. I just thought I would test it for you so everyone could hear me and you know that it's open.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Someone wants to make a motion to close it. At this point, I'd be more than glad to accept it.
Well,
Hearing-
I always get in trouble for making a motion, but I'll make it now if you say it's okay.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, state aye.
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 Motion carries. So I have a motion to pay all duly authorized bills.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, state aye.
Roll call, isn't it?
Aye.
I have an abstention. I do have an abstention of 20-01217.
You have that noted, Karen?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Do I have a motion to go in closed at this time?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
First and second, all in favor, state aye.
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 Against? Okay, everyone is to sign off of this and use the number that I texted you for closed. Please sign off. I'm watching everybody to see that you sign off before I sign off.
Hey, Ed, I didn't get a text. Do you need me a part of that?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'll forward it to you.
Okay. No problem. Forward to me and I'll hook up. Thanks.
Yep.
Ed, I have to stay on this particular one though. But,
Yeah.
if I don't stay on it, I can't run it.
I'm just going to
Hey, Anthony.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, George.
I just have you, kiddo. You're in a big picture.
I'm sorry it wasn't a better one.
No, don't change it. I like seeing a pretty face. Don't put them other people on.
I got stuck at the office today. I didn't get to go home and spruce up.
Nah, you look good no matter what, kiddo.
Oh, you too,
There's my other girlfriend.
I know. See, she's a much better picture than I am.
That's my girlfriend there.
We're talking about you, Danielle. You're muted.
George, can you still only see me and Karen? Because we're the only ones here, I think.
Yeah,
And the other Karen.
Don't
there's
change.
everybody
I
else.
got 3 pretty girls. Don't change it.
Change it.
Now I get my
Yeah, you get the mayor and
the
Ed.
whole picture. The Melanger ruins the whole picture.
That's not perfect, George.
Mayor, I had 3 pretty girls on, and then you and Eddie come on.
George, wait till Timmy gets on here. Ooh.
Oh, God.
I knew we couldn't leave you alone, George, for a few minutes. We had to get back on.
Hey, Anthony, are you on? Anthony, can you give me the number? Because I got to text it to Tony, I think. Tony, you on? Do you have the number for this? Hold
The
on,
number that he read off was correct.
Right, because I already sent it to him at 7:43, as a matter of fact.
When are we going back to regular meetings?
I would say in July.
July 2021.
Yeah.
Maybe we can have Anthony one day give us like a little IT workshop. Know how
You
to do
you don't think we could do it in June?
We can't go back until after the end of July because I've already advertised for something.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I just miss everybody. That's all. I just miss everybody.
All right, let me see if I can find Anthony and we can close this meeting out. Jeez and crackers.
Well, we have 3 callers on. Is one of them Tony?
You have 1,
Tony,
2,
are you on?
3.
There's Joe D.
Yeah, you have a quorum.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved, so moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Guys, don't we have to, we already did the other public work. Oh, sorry, I'm confused.
We're done.
All right, see you all. Have a great night.
Everybody stay
All right,
safe.
good night,
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Edward.
See ya. Yeah.
Say it.